Martin, thanks for inviting me to your podcast. Looking forward to our conversations. You asked me about my background. I have spent close to, I think, 18 to 20 years in the sales, B2B tech sales, value selling area. I started my career here in Americas with McKinsey as a business consultant, and then moved over to Oracle. Spent time at Oracle, at Adaptive Insights, which was a startup in the financial planning software side. Went to Workday, and then now I'm working as a value manager at Snowflake. So I've got a bit of experience with the B2B value selling space, and it's really the journey started even before I started doing value selling. I got my first brush of customer focused consulting work, and that kind of discipline and value focused work from McKinsey and Company, where we were just business consultants. But really, what was drilled into us was understand the customer, where the customer is coming from, and really build the solution from the customer's point of view and those core drivers. And that helped me really leverage some of those principles at Oracle, where I was part of Insights team. Did a lot of value consulting, business cases, case for change with the key executives, and really got a understanding of really what it takes to do value selling. Whether value selling is being done by a value manager like me, or a sales rep or an account executive, and really got my foundations there.
It's really fascinating because in the we work with a lot of different companies, and in many of the large organizations, they will have a business value consulting team. And there tends to be a bit of a pattern of ex consulting, specifically McKinsey, will many of them will go into this value practice space. When you were at McKinsey, was there well, it sounds like there was must have been quite a considerable area of practice for value, right? For at organizations, would you actually consult on value for sales teams, or was this an adaptive um, role that went from the consulting side into an internal consulting to a customer facing role?
Martin, when I was at McKinsey and Company, I saw some of our consultants do join some of the value consulting roles in tech companies, and I was part of the tech practice. So there was some of that. But also, what I've noticed is even across technology companies, whether it's SAP, Oracle, more importantly now at AWS, a lot of Workday, there is consulting and investment banking are two hunting grounds for hiring value managers, most common ones. Now things have shifted a little bit more. I have seen a lot of folks with finance background also come into the value consulting role. But at that time, I made the shift. Business consulting and investment banking were the two hunting grounds for a lot of. So it's a bit of both, I would say. But when I was at McKinsey, I saw quite a few of engagements that were working with the technology teams and talking about solutions, understanding the customer problem. So there was a lot of that natural understanding of what are the big challenges from a sales perspective B2B tech companies are going through, and that helped us prepare for this kind of role.
And would you normally partner up with somebody within the sales side of the organization?
Yes, of course. When we were at McKinsey, that was sales was one of the stakeholders that we would engage with, and that drove an understanding of what's happening today. But besides sales, marketing, the office of solution engineering, all of those were part of the understanding, getting our arms around, hey, what's the problem, where is the sales cycle breaking down, sales operations, sales leadership, solution engineering, all of those were part of that stakeholder conversations.
And then when you went client side, when you work, for instance, when you were at Workday or even now where you are, I would presume most of the sale is a team effort, right? The value engineer or value consulting works in cohort with a an account executive, senior account executive who I would assume leads that deal with the support of the value engineer.
Absolutely. So I think the value function plays a critical role, but it does not play it on its own. In successful situations, I have seen the account team, especially the account executive, to be a big champion of engaging the value stakeholders in the sales process. And I think it's really key to the success of the deal, because we support many accounts, many theaters, many regions, and we are not as deep into the account. But it's the account executives who has understands the lay of the land, who
Sure.
understands who the key decision makers are, and he can point us in saying, "Hey, okay, Manish or the manager in question, here is what's where we are. Here are the key decision makers. Here is my champion. Here are some people sitting on the fence. Let's go and build a business case that." We can sell and use that to sell to the executive and create that momentum. So it has to that collaboration is key. That first step has to be
Sure.
taken by the account executives.
And I'm curious about the relationship dynamics between a personality type that traditionally on the sales side is a bit alpha, a bit extroverted, with a consulting type that I would imagine is more of a, I wouldn't say introvert, but more of a kind of thought-driven, think first, speak second.
Hmm.
Um, how do you match those two very different personality types in order to make sure that each one knows a role within a sales opportunity and you can get the best possible result?
It's an interesting question, Martin. And as you would imagine, there would be there are different types of personas within the account executive, um, you know, uh, ecosystem. There are definitely the alpha who would want to take control or who would want to be part of the process. Then
Yeah,
there are others who are really saying, "Okay, I'm going to do let you, Mr. Value Manager or Miss Value Manager, I'm going to let you do your thing." And I have come across that spectrum of where where the account executive still thinks that, hey, this is my area of strength. Let me deal with this. I'm going to be in the driver's seat. And then there are people who are saying, okay, you
mm,
move the whole process. And I feel both the extremes are not great.
totally.
um, yeah, I think a happy middle where I think all the engagements that I have seen, and whether an account executive or manager is doing, a value engineer or a value manager is also a sales rep in my point of view. But we are doing different type. We are selling in a different way.
Yeah,
We sell by understanding what the strategic drivers are, what the pain points are, what are the personal drivers of our stakeholders. And then we weave the solution in a way that sells to that pain, sells to that priority, sells to that personal requirement or need or driver for that stakeholder. And I think if an account executive is able to see that dynamic, then when he comes in that conversation and says, "Okay, you talked about that pain, and this the solution that we are proposing can address it in this way," then you have really listened. And that kind of partnership between account executive and value manager or engineer is a great way to accelerate the sales cycle, because we are trying to, at the end of the day, we're trying to sell. But it's a different way of selling. It's not about, hey, let me show up and throw up. It's really about walking through a step, because I have seen my experiences, instead of us selling, listening is a much better tool to deliver, to build that rapport that helps us sell.
yeah. It's a shame more people don't do that. And within that relationship, do you tend to have kind of fixed partnerships within the organization? Do you have a sales rep and a value engineer, they partner up on most deals, or do you kind of change and vary throughout the different deal cycles?
I think it varies by company to company and how the engagement is. It's really the partnership, I think, primarily is with the account executive. But then I do make it a point, and when we work with our teams, is solution engineers and professional services stakeholders from whether I was when I was at Workday, I would have the account executive would bring us in, but the solution engineer would have his own take on the situation. The PS stakeholders, I had a great relationship working with the PS leaders at Workday when we were at Adaptive Insights and Workday, where they would have a better sense of what their big problems are from a current state perspective because they would have different expertise. The account executive would have the relationship expertise and who the big drivers are. Solution engineers would have saying, hey,
Mm.
here are all the stakeholders where the pain might be, and the PS team would have their own expertise and really tapping into that. And I would say the best practice for value managers is when they fashion out and they have time, they fashion out a hypothesis of what the value might be,
So
what the challenges might be. It's good to get that prep work done with the key stakeholders and then have that conversation with the customer if the time and the relationship dynamics allow for that.
absolutely. And given that you've worked at a number of different very large companies that have very established value engineering roles and practices, how has it have you found a lot of common threads across the different companies and how they practice value within the sales function? Or does each organization practice? I would imagine they're all very, very similar because ultimately it's the certain law of gravity with regard to value. There's only so many outcomes you can possibly generate.
I would say that, on the face of it, Martin, you would think that there is a lot of similarity, and there is. They have value teams, they're building those teams, and these
Mhm.
value managers are really, engaging on a sales cycles and helping add value. So that's the similarity part. But I think the difference is in the emphasis and how the leadership views the role of value in the sales cycle. And I would say that if the sales leadership or the management team of the company really gets how uh, business cases or value function supports and what it can be, then what they are driving is a top down mandate, if not mandate, top down encouragement to their district managers, to their RVPs or VPs of sales to say, look, you need to engage sales cycle when they are doing deal review or looking at the pipeline, saying, is value team involved? Do we have a business case here? That kind of gentle nudges and encouragement around value selling really really makes the big difference, because while you can have a
So,
team, if that top down encouragement is somewhat limited, then the impact is also limited of value selling.
so
So that's really the big difference that I see. And I've seen both the whole spectrum where I've seen leadership, management teams really acknowledge, oh my God, value value management team really adds value. It helps us elevate the conversation. It gets us in front of the executives. It helps us tell that narrative. Let's use this as often as we can. And I've seen that companies. And then there are other where we say, yes, it adds value where it's needed. I don't want this to delay my sales cycle. And sometimes it's justified, Martin.
sure,
Sometimes, doing a business case might elongate the sales cycle when you're trying to close. So I'm not saying that's wrong, but in the setup is really when saying, okay, it's when needed, it's helpful. And then there is others where you have somewhat indifferent.
totally, totally. And so, how do you address a scenario when you are engaged with a prospect and you're trying to assess what are the challenges or problems, what's the pain that they have, and you trying to ascribe a value to it? What happens when the prospect they just don't have the information that you need in order to start to generate the value or the metric behind solving that pain?
I think when I go to a prospect, when I have a conversation, what I'm trying to get into is really just have an open mind and ask questions. And what my goal is to really get a feel. It's an intuitive feel. So my goal is that I want to have um, it's not yet I've not achieved the goal is 70% the prospect should talk, 30% I should talk. I'm trying to get a lay of the land first and saying, okay, what's happening, what's the role that you have, how do you fit in this ecosystem of the company, uh, and then we try and say, what are you trying to do, why are you trying to do this. But it's really about listening, and more often than not, most of the prospect and the stakeholders who are having a conversation are looking towards a business case that they need help selling this.
Yeah,
uh, Really, they have the story. You are just trying to you're just trying to uh, ask the right questions, understand the emphasis, what they are trying to think about. And my process is to um, get that down, synthesize it, put it in a story format that prospect and champion is going to be the driver in selling. So he's going to be our seller, and all the ammunition is with the prospect. So going with an um, uh, you know, open mind, even when I know the answers, the words that they are using, I know I've heard that 10 times before in my discovery conversations. Having that kind of a having that kind of a conversation really helps, because I believe while we get an opportunity to present the business case to the executive teams, it's not as often. And even if we do, our prospects need to be our sellers,
yes,
provided we can give them the right story that they believe in, they are behind. It's their story, it's not our story, it's their story, and customize it to their needs, and they sell it for us. And that's how where I go and prep for that.
the business case is not ours, it's the champions, right? We just help, we
That's it.
prepare it for them, right? And that's why
That's it.
it's so important to get them vested in that business case, because they're the ones that are going to go sell it. A very wise person I was speaking to today was saying, at the end there's two sales: the sales that we see and the sales that we are not seeing, which is what's
Mm,
happening behind closed doors. And you need to be able to have a common thread across both of those sales with the right story that we can at least have taken control over in the very beginning.
that's very well said. I think we all underestimate the power of that the sales that we don't see.
Yeah,
But I think we can influence the sales that we don't see by having an engagement that's really focusing on our prospects, our buyers, and trying to understand what they're trying to do. And if they feel listened to, if they feel acknowledged by not just a conversation, but what we put together, we use the same word on the executive summary that they frame,
exactly.
not the words that we use, then they become our selling champions.
Totally. You adapt to their business lingo, their language, their business model, right?
That's it.
Especially with like the companies that you worked for, you can offer services to so many different verticals, so many different types of organizations. I suppose it's all about adapting to their reality, not forcing them to adapt to your structure, right?
And I think that's somewhat underestimated, especially when you are a new sales rep. You
Yes,
have,
exactly.
you have your own pitch, you have your own deck, and you want to really deliver that. I've seen that, and but the more seasoned reps I have seen, or the more self-enlightened reps, are always are not the ones who are selling. Okay, let me tell you how
Yeah.
this
Let me
product
show you
really,
something
what the
cool.
capability. Let me show you a demo. Let me tell you what this new slide that we have, this capability that can help you.
Because it's easy a lot of time to hide insecurity behind the demo, right? And a lot of the time it's maybe your rep is young, a little bit nervous, and it's very easy to just put a bunch of slides in front to hopefully get through the meeting.
Yeah, and I've done that, Martin. I
We've
would
all done
fully acknowledge that.
that.
I would acknowledge that I have done that where um, I think my experience is that most of our engagements with people, especially in selling situation, which is a high pressure situation, this self talk in our head, especially when we are new, can be can be nerve wracking, and you try and overcome or compensate for it by let me walk through the slides.
Yeah, yeah,
Let me tell you the pitch that I just delivered and recorded, and my DM approved it. That tells us the company pitch, the product pitch. And I think one of my mentors, we I had this beautiful deck. Like it was a deck that I had worked on a lot, and we went with him. This is Harry Gum- Oracle. We went with him to present it at a executives were coming in, and I had prepared and I had worked with him, and he was supposed to deliver a portion. I was supposed to deliver a portion, and he goes in, and I'm presenting something, and then he says, "Okay, let's pause, Manish. Let me understand." And he starts asking a question. So the whole 45-minute presentation was just a conversation. He comes out and says, "Manish, let's not get married to our decks, our slides. A success of a meeting
yeah,
is, um, did we engage our customers into a conversation that felt, they felt listened to, they felt acknowledged, and there was a learning moment for me. And after that, I tried to really coach myself in saying, okay, it's not that me because I built the slides, I need to present. That should not be the goal of the meeting.
for sure, for sure. And what's this interesting is that the you know when we think about the buyer side, we talked about the sales side and maybe their level of insight or security in a on a deal. But on the buy side, how often do you find that the buyer, it may be the first time that the champion at least is the first time they're buying your category, and that there needs to be a bit of buyer enablement. We talk a lot about sales enablement on the sales tooling, but it feels like specifically in categories like the ones that you've worked in where there can be a lot of complexity, your champion may have been tasked to buy this. How often have you found that it's the first time that they're buying this category, and therefore they need a real level of coaching that they may be not sharing with you because it's all their reputation as well.
Martin, it's a fair question, and I think it happens often enough. And I think there is an element of um, buyer enablement, but most buyers would not come out and say that.
Exactly.
You know, and sometimes it's not just we have case of nerves as sellers, as value sellers, value consultants. Our customers, our prospects also have case of nerves, but they try and cover it up by saying you are a vendor, and I am going to ration out the information that I share because I need to act as a neutral party. And you
Yeah.
come across those stakeholders also. More often than not, what I see is you can break through that by just trying to ask open-ended questions and saying, look, when value management is engaging, we are trying to do something that's helpful for you. For example, I'll tell you, I've had many situations where a champion has told me, I don't need a business case. I have it in my, I have the budget, I
I'm
have
ready.
the sponsorship. Don't worry about it. I don't need it. And after many repetitions of the same things, what has happened in many cases, a portion of these people come back at the right at the fag end of the deal cycle and saying, "Oh, actually, my CU is asking for justification on this. I thought I had a,
Yeah.
uh, you know, so it's not just about the product, it's about the process. They're buying it for the first time. It's not about, if they're buying for the first time, they might know the product, they might not know the approval decision making process itself for doing a deal. And that's really a driver. And so you can, I what I try and do is saying, yes, I completely see that you have the engagement, you have the buy-in from, and you have the budget. But what I have seen is, when you are taking these kind of decisions to the leadership team, sometimes they would ask for a justification, and it's good to have that in the back pocket. You might not need it. Something written down might be very useful, and many of them would say, "Okay, let's talk about it." And and maybe, and think, what I then propose is, let's have a conversation. If you think that you already have all the big elements of a business case already in your head or somewhere written down, I think you should be good to go. We can help you review that process, that business case. We can help clarify some of the points. By the end of that discovery conversation, that guy says, you're asking very right questions, these are helpful.
Mm.
Why, it's a nice to have, let me invest the time, you're asking the right question, let me invest the time. So I think there is that
Yeah.
shift that can be done.
Especially if it's relatively young buyer inexperienced, that they may not even know that it's likely they're going to need a business case. I mean, most,
That's it.
even if they have the budget, like you said, no decision gets made without a business case. As formal or informal, any purchase needs some degree of assessment of that business case. It may have been before they've decided to buy it, but then when they actually see a vendor in front of them and they understand what the cost implications are, they're going to need to run through those numbers again.
Yeah, and one thing that I would like to point out is that in this kind of a question, if you look at a large organization where there are multiple decision makers and stakeholders
Yeah,
for a solution, there, all the stakeholders have incomplete information or information that is very oriented towards their domain, but a
exactly.
solution that would serve multiple stakeholders. And therefore, all the value sellers must ask their account teams, as well as themselves, ask for a broader engagement with multiple stakeholders. If solution has multiple people who are either going to use it, influence
Indeed.
it, manage it, are there different people or different teams, then you need to say, let's get a holistic picture. But because not one team would have the full knowledge, and these are
Mm.
cross functional teams, there is no proper, sometimes there is, in some customers there is an understanding of what is needed to be done. In others, those teams might not have all the information. They might not have gone in internally and did the discovery, and that then the account team and the value teams have to go in and talk to all the stakeholders and build that comprehensive business case. And when a business case has representation and the voice of customer from multiple teams, then your sales cycle itself has huge momentum,
Yes,
because internal selling is happening across multiple teams.
absolutely. Fascinating, Manish. Thank you. We're just nearing the end of our fireside chat. I did have two final questions for you. The first one is, in your illustrious career in the value engineering space, who has been the best value engineer that you've worked with?
Yes. So let me tell you a quick story about this, in terms
Please do.
of. So we were a couple of years ago, maybe 2 years ago, at Snowflake. We were doing a session at Sales Kickoff, and where we had to like do a fireside chat like we are doing with an account executive. And we were saying we need to identify a rep who really gets the value of value
Yeah.
management. And one of my peers here in the team said, hey, I have the guy. This guy is a much better value seller than I am, and I respect that, this internal peer of mine on the value side. I said, are you smoking something? I don't think so. Any account executive can be a better value seller than the value managers. And lo and behold, I interview this gentleman, Christian Yarbrough. He, fairly young guy, not a seasoned, fairly young guy, growing very fast. Um, he is the guy who really uh, lives up the principles of value. He really
Mm.
tries and understands the problem, understand the business, goes across different teams, captures that, and becomes the bridge within his customer to really understand what's happening, what are the potential use cases, what are the problems, and really becomes the bridge to share information across these teams. But really, information that's not about the product. It's about the problem and the value. But I have met a lot of very self-enlightened value sellers in the account teams who are really strong. But his name came up, and I had the personal experience, and I was completely blown away by how many account executives really those
Because
principles of value selling.
the better they do, the better they perform, right? There's a
That's it. That's
natural
it.
correlation.
Yeah,
And
that's
within
it.
your peer group of engineers, value engineers, consultants.
I'll have to talk about my peer group. There is one person. There was a lot of smart people that I work with. I've worked with in the past, but one of the best ones that I worked with is Anna King. She leads the value function. Martin, she might be a great candidate for your podcast.
Yeah.
Oh, who knows?
So
But although I have not seen her in a value selling role, but I knew that she was very effective. And the reason why I say that, I really believe in the value of discovery, asking open ended questions. But Anna King really is a past master at that, in the sense that the way she would ask questions of her directs, her sales leaders, her peers, or the customer is really in a way that is really curious. I'm really interested. And in a way that really promotes self awareness uh, in the other person.
mm,
And that's really powerful. And that's really reason the Anna King
that's
comes to fore.
that's an innate skill. It's very difficult to train that. Like
Yes,
you can
it's
train a
very,
degree of that, but there's just
yeah,
something, a natural gift people have of that.
yeah.
Brilliant. Manish, thank you so much. It's been a really lovely conversation.
Martin, thank you for having me on your platform here. Thank you.